Welcome to you and welcome back if you've been following Why the Small Face podcast. Today, I'm talking about a topic that I didn't plan on this one, but it is an appropriate time to talk about love, loss, and grief. So, if you've been following, my husband and I bought this farm about 4 or 5 months ago, and I've been on a quest to learn how to communicate with the horses. Why the Small Face was titled because every time I walked into the barn, I couldn't stop thinking about the joke from my childhood. When a horse walks into a bar, the bartender says, "Why the long face?" Every time I walk into the barn, I feel like the horse is looking at me saying, "Why the small face?" It's just, that's how my goofy brain works around trying to understand communication. And it's been going it's been going well for the most part in terms of learning and trusting my instincts. And as I've shared before, I spend lots of time researching and lots of time looking for different resources to make sure that I am showing up with my A game for these horses, because my goal is really for them to trust who I am when I show up. And what I love about a horse is that when people use the expression that a horse is always honest, what that means is the horse doesn't have an ability to be fake about their disposition. They don't have the ability to think in their mind, "Oh, well, let me help this person feel better about themselves and do XYZ." They are who they are. And what I love about that is they reflect back to the human that we are who we are. So it's been a journey and a process to help me see what the horses are teaching me about myself. And I take that to apply not just to being a human, but leadership is something that's very important to me. It shows up in my daily life, whether I'm at home or at work. So I'm consciously looking for ways to improve my own methods of communication, my style of leadership, and self reflection, and being able to really analyze how I'm showing up to have a better impact on the people that I serve. That's something that's very important to me. So it's been a nice surprise to learn from every interaction with the horses of how I can make myself better. What also comes with that is I'm trying to sort of speed up and accelerate my comfort in being around big horse energy that I just don't understand. And I don't understand it just because I haven't had the exposure. We've had our horse Maggie for a little over 3 years. As many of you know, Maggie has been the horse that really was responsible for us falling in love with the lifestyle that we're living now. So because of Maggie, my husband fell in love with cowboy mounted shooting. He fell in love with all things cowboy related. And he's been able to partner with her to, experience all of those different activities. Maggie was one of 2 or 3 horses I've ever been on in my life. So I have grown to get more comfortable with her. And if you've been following the podcast, you'll know that I've put myself back out there. And I had been writing and trying to build my confidence back up. What I love about being in relationship with horses, it is just like being in relationship with humans. You might have a great relationship with one, and then you come over to another, and you don't get to pull from the one and apply it to the other, but you get to pull from what you know about yourself as being someone who's in relationship to then build relationships with other people. So I'm finding the same thing with horses. What I need to share, which is a very sad thing to share, this episode is really about loss and grief. And I thought I was ready for this. So I'll take a minute, because we did lose Maggie and we lost her unexpectedly. It's been just over a week. And what Maggie really taught us about her and what she taught us about each other, and I'm talking about Rick and I, um, it's funny because I think Rick has always been the one who naturally just does, right? He just does things. And I'm the one who questions everything and I'm the one who analyzes everything. So while we've both been reflecting a lot over the past week about how Maggie has impacted our life as individuals and as a couple and as a family, um, what I really learned clearly is that sometimes I try so hard to look for the answer to something that I'm not paying attention to the process of the search. So in my searching through my interactions with the horses to get comfortable or to get knowledgeable or to figure things out, I haven't 100% stopped to just trust and receive what I'm getting from them. So with Maggie, we had a health issue with her about a week or two after she came to the property, right after we bought it. Maggie was boarded off property because we've had her for a little over 3 years, and she was boarded with wonderful horse trainers, and they've taught us so much, and they took the best care of her. So when she came here and she had what we thought was colic, colic happens. So we lived it through. We consulted with them. We consulted with our vet. We consulted with anyone we could consult with who had more information than us. And we treated her for colic, and we waited and we watched, and we watched her get well, and we watched her have a few setbacks, and we watched her get well and have a few setbacks. So we continued to attribute that there could have been stress, there could have been an ulcer, there could have been a response to deworming, there could have been just, I don't know, all of these different things that were continuing to kind of have her bounce back and forth. Um, so at any rate, as we got a little bit closer to Maggie's passing, she started to lose the function of her back legs. And it's icy outside, and we thought perhaps she had slipped, and we were beating ourselves up for should they have been in one day when they were out. And we had a chiropractor come and examine her, thinking maybe she threw something out, and that was not the case. And we were about a week behind in a response that we really needed to have a vet here. The calls were out, and the waiting process of getting someone to come was very frustrating and very uh, it, it it was frustrating. So at any rate, once Maggie had been examined and there was some guess of what was going on, we were to the point where we needed to make a decision how we were going to treat her. So as we were making a decision one evening, and we knew we were going to have to go month to month and do an investment month to month to see if she would respond. That was our plan. And Rick and I went out to the barn the next morning as we were talking about that. And the way that we found Maggie in her stall, it was very clear and apparent that her time had come. So in that moment of shock, shifting from we're going to start treatment to we're now calling the vet for this emergency, clearly from that had come to fruition from all of the things that she had been struggling with. um we weren't we weren't expecting that to happen. I don't want to share all of those details because it's hard. It is just hard. But at the what I do want to share is, for all of the trying and all of the guessing and all of the second guessing, that the actual experience of being with Maggie as she was facing the last hours of her life is where we found some confirmation of, I think, what Rick already knew, but I needed to experience for myself. That there are sometimes you just absolutely do know what you're doing, even when you don't think you do, and even when you don't understand what's happening. And for Maggie, she allowed us to show up in a way for her and just provide what we believed she needed in those hours, which was to stay calm and to be taken care of and to be loved. And feeling it back was really pretty awesome. All right, this sound must be terrible with the tissues and the sniffling. And if you're an animal person, you probably get it. If you're not, you're probably not here anymore. You probably bailed out a while ago. Um, but that experience with Maggie was something that, again, allowed us to show up for her. It allowed Rick and I to really be there for each other in the first way that we'd been able to be there for each other since we moved here. If you're aware, I chronicle every day of our experience on Facebook. So the day of her passing was day 145, and neither one of us thought that we would be experiencing that because can live 25, 30 years, sometimes more, sometimes less, of course. But Maggie was 17. We thought we had at least another 10 years with her. So when I think about 145 days of how impossible it feels that we would be losing our Maggie, who brought us here, there'd be no horse barn without her. There'd be no Bull Mantra 6 farms without her. It was just unimaginable to us. And what was as equally shocking to me was that it took 145 days for me to feel locked in with Rick about what we were doing. And it took 145 days for me to absolutely trust that I knew how to make decisions and what was best for the horse. That kind of experience, it seems it's if you haven't experienced loss and grief on a level of losing a very important human or an animal, it might sound unimaginable. But now living through being with my dad as he passed and being with Maggie as she passed, there's something that in our mind and in our body and our spirit that really does allow for absolute despair and absolute peace at the same time. And it doesn't seem right. It's very disorienting that that can be in the same space because in most of my lived experiences around crisis or loss or pain or suffering have been so specific to an event that all I could feel was one thing. Or in my case, I would feel nothing. And then I would feel all of the things later at times that were not convenient for it to seep out because I didn't know how to lean into being present because I was fearful that the pain of what was happening would be too great. And if you've not experienced a walk like that, it might sound ridiculous, but we all have different experiences that build our memory and our experiences with trauma, with attachment, with our personality types. So most of my life, I've just chased away from feeling anything big like that because I really wasn't equipped to handle it. And what Maggie allowed for Rick and I to be present and feel and process and grieve and sob and laugh and remember sweet things all at the same time with no anger and no tension and nothing other than be here, be present, make the right choice, support each other, help each other. Um, I needed that. I think I needed that before 145 days of being here together. And I take that as a selfless act from Maggie as a gift because it snapped me out of stop being so afraid to trust my instincts and trust my guts. Sounded kind of funny, my guts. Um, but to also just stop being so fearful of feeling something that I think I was really holding myself back from, I don't want to feel too much because what if we lose this? What if we lose something? And I'm not saying that's a healthy way to see anything. And it is not my choice to view the world that way. It's something I work against every day that is hardwired from many, many, many years ago. Um, but being aware of it and choosing not to accept that as my daily view and perception of the world, it takes work. So to have this experience where I could actually just let myself feel what I needed to with Rick and with Maggie and with the people who continued to show up for us on that day. We had people who board here who were with us through it all. They helped us with the next steps. They helped us grieve. They helped us figure out some logistics that we needed to figure out. They helped bring things to help make us feel better. Um, and they felt the loss too, and they had relationship too. And even though we've all only known each other for 145 days at that point, they were able to really show how big of a community we have around us and that could be there for us. So, as we talk about love, loss, and grief in as humans, in relationship to other humans and to our animals, I want to encourage you, if you're someone who, like me, has been fearful to feel what you really feel because you don't want to, you're trying to prevent the anticipation of pain through loss. I'm not a therapist. I can't tell you why you would feel that way, but I can tell you that there are so many reasons why people feel that way, not by choice. So getting some perspective through a professional to help you with that, getting some perspective through all of the tools and resources that are available in the written word or podcasts or classes. It's so important to not sell yourself short in your own experiences in life because you're afraid of anticipating the pain that will come if that's taken away. So I just want to sing that from the rooftops because the payoff of feeling it and actually experiencing the pain and seeing the strength that comes from places you didn't know that you had. And I'm not talking about strength like gut it out, I can handle anything. I'm talking about the kind of strength that is building wisdom and it's building resilience and it's building your heart capacity for taking care of other people when they're going through that. But more specifically, for taking care of yourself to see that you're not going to crumble and you're not going to just turn into a heap. You're going to feel and experience and be able to show up in a way that whoever needs you in that moment. And to show up when my dad was passing, there's a point at which when a human leaves the world I don't know if it's a natural progression, but for my dad, his last two or 3 days, he was really not there. His body continued to function, but still showing up, not knowing in his spirit was what he was feeling. And is he being comforted? Knowing that his wife, my stepmother, needed that kind of presence of being calm and available and in it, just being in it, in something that is so hard. That's where your people pull you through. And it was that similar with Maggie. We were shocked because everything was happening so fast, but there was a locked in zone that was like, just be present because it matters, and you learn what you need to learn. So bringing it full circle to part of the reason that we bought this farm, in Rick's mind, it was to have the barn, fill it up with horses, do things that are fun with horses, trail rides and pony parties, and um, continuing to practice for mounted shooting and all of the events that he likes to participate in. For me, the whole purpose it's not the purpose. I came because I'm married to Rick and I wanted to be part of him living out that dream for himself. I thought that was a beautiful vision and I'm glad that he could experience that. I wasn't sure if I would ever get up to speed to experience the love and the joy of riding a horse, participating in any events or anything like that. But when we looked at this property, what the land spoke to me about was that I was going to heal here. This was going to be a place that I was going to heal my mind, my body, and my spirit, because I had had a couple years of just being um, allowing things to sort of be off the rails in terms of my health, and not allowing in terms of I'm going to eat all the junk food and go drink and party or do whatever. I don't do that. Well, I do junk food, but um, I needed to trust that I had a place where I was safe to get into the ground and do some things with my hands and interact with the animals and just be really open to what this property was trying to speak to me, that I could heal in my body. And I was pretty narrow visioned at that time because I was physically in pain at the time that we looked here, and I thought, I don't know if I can navigate this space because everything hurt, and I was anxious and I was angry and I was more depressed than I wanted to be. All of those things because my health was just in that in a bad spot. So when I really embraced that, the same way the Lord spoke to Rick about this property is going to be ours, I felt him talk to me too, to say, this is where you're going to come to heal. And it seems so counterintuitive that I would be able to heal at an accelerated rate through some of the hardest things that I've had to experience in my life. So the healing that has started to take place here on this property, again, I look to Maggie and I think she will forever be such a huge piece of not just our life and some of our core memories, but to offer me an experience through her that showed me, okay, I have been healing physically. I have been healing emotionally. I have been healing spiritually. And because of that, on day 145, I was able to show up in a way and see it in a way that was measurable. And I could be grateful for it. And I could look to honoring the people who have helped me through, which is the whole community who continued to show up for us that day and since that day. And it might sound so corny, but I can't imagine not seeing it. And I can't imagine not having that experience to measure it. And I can't imagine having experienced that with any other horse on the property because I didn't have the same relationship with those horses. I love those horses and I'm building those relationships. But Maggie was the one. She was the one that, again, brought us here, and there was relationship. So when I think about where's that connection with humans, horses, horses and horses and humans, I'm just constantly on that quest of watching and observing and learning and applying. And I've watched the horses since her passing, and you can see who had relationship with her through their behavior in that first 24 hours of her not being there. Just the same way you could see in any human when they suffer loss, which humans had more relationship than some of the other humans. It doesn't mean that there's not sympathy and empathy and relational ability for other people when they're going through their pain. But it fascinates me to watch how many things are similar and how many things are different. And when we go back to the horses of not having executive function and being able to cognitively formulate a plan or a message, they just feel. And they feel everything at the level of which they are conditioned, which I think is very similar to humans, but it's all sensory. They just feel it. And one of the things that really helps me as a human, as I'm healing my body, is to feel things on that sensory level and to to grow and to cultivate not a hardness like a hardening of the heart, but a hardness. If something feels hard to me because I'm afraid I can't handle something, I've learned how to build doing hard things in other areas to kind of teach my body and trick my body into being ready to deal with hard things. Specific example, if you know anything about the vagus nerve and how to kind of calm it down, because when that thing is on fire, your whole body feels it and your mind feels it, and it's terrible. It's one of the things I've been working with. Um, a very simple thing. Some people do ice plunges. I don't have any sort of thing I crawl into to plunge into. I think that might kill me. That's be way too shocking. But I try to follow that concept. And every single day for the past probably 8 months, I end my showers with a couple minutes of very, very, very cold water. And I just gut it out. And it has been helping tremendously to condition my body to handle some zaps of hardness, right? Because it is hard, but it's conditioning your body or reconditioning it to handle different things. So, with each step that we experience in life, when something is really hard and we think, oh, I can't handle it, or I'm going to try to find a way out of something because I don't think I can handle it, build things that you know how to handle, build things that you don't think you know how to handle, and watch how much better you get at handling those things. Taking a cold shower seemed like torture. I can handle cold weather better. I can handle hard moments interacting with people better. I can handle the anxiety and fears that pop up in my mind from a situation without it turning into the anxiety that happens when my vagus nerve is on fire. Those things are very noticeable to me. So when I think about that with the horses, you know, what I read recently is that people follow all these different philosophies of trying to practice with their horse to do things right. And one of the things I read most recently is that a horse just wants to be at peace. So anything that we can bring to them that helps them regulate peacefully is something that really stuck with me, because as a human who just has tried so hard to regulate, to get to that place of homeostasis in our body, which the body just wants to be at equilibrium all the time, it really resonated for me, because I think, oh, well, that's what I'm trying to do in my body. That's what I'm trying to do in my mind. That's what I try to do at work. That's what I try to help other people tap into when they're struggling and having a hard time. Let's figure out regulation and what is happening there. So with love, loss, and grief, we do have some element of control in how we regulate ourselves. The funny thing with grief is that it takes on a life of its own. It is not something that's super predictable. It has all the different stages that you'll feel, but even they don't happen in order, and they don't happen for a specific amount of time. So working with yourself to heal what needs to be healed is the greatest gift you can give yourself, so that you are prepared for whatever life is going to throw at you. And since we experienced something that was so incredibly hard, and I can't imagine experiencing anything worse, I feel prepared in a different way than I had before, because it's giving me some ability to just trust that I can look at a horse and feel what's going on with it. Trust that I have enough in my repertoire, which is so tiny, to read and have the intuition to know what to do, or better yet, what not to do, and be willing to try and to stay in action and not be frozen. And as someone who's led a life of being frozen a lot, the peace that comes with staying in action is incredibly powerful. And even in circumstances that are unimaginable, it's no less powerful. It actually builds that confidence, and it makes you feel more ready. for whatever the world is going to offer. And it helps us accept the fact that we can't measure our life by things being good. We can't measure our life by things being well. We measure our life by how we are making an impact despite the circumstances of well, good, tragic, sad, happy, and really leaning into our experience here on the world is all of it, and to stop trying to avoid the pain and try to stop chasing or outrunning the fear of the what if or the might or this might happen. Really getting grounded with taking stock of what is in your life that is so solid that you can sustain anything. You can weather any storm that comes your way. So for me, I just want to thank Maggie for that, because it's still fresh and it's so clear. And I loved her before she taught me that lesson, but I certainly love that she taught me that lesson. I love her and we miss her terribly here. The barn is not the same, but we have 9 incredible horses on this property, and we are going to continue to build our relationships with each one of them, and the desire to want to do that every day. It's been over a week, and within this past week, I've gotten so much closer to Scarlet, who I was terrified of, and to Sunshine, who I wasn't terrified of, but I wasn't quite sure about her energy and are we okay together? And our 3 little minis who are, they're little, but they are big energy. And I always had just a little bit of a little fear around the unknown there. So I'm happy to say that I pushed through that and to honor Maggie, because she allowed anything. I know she was unique in that she would never do anything to surprise me and make me feel unsafe. The other ones still might, but there's a different level of my willingness to connect with them. And I'm loving the process of watching what they give back and how the fear doesn't grow, the fear gets smaller, the beauty grows. And silly me for waiting too long and for waiting for something that was really tragic in my eyes to feel like I had enough confidence to make that connection. And that's what life is. That none of us are doing this perfectly. I don't know that there's right and wrong when it comes to trying different things. There's right and wrong morally. That's not this kind of podcast. That's not what we're talking about. So to continue to navigate, I would just hold Maggie in a very, very special place. And I hope that every lesson that she's taught me, I can continue to somehow push forward and have an impact. However, the Lord wants to use me in making impact in the world. She will definitely hold a special place in my heart. And I think I will continue to recognize the experience that we went through with her and being with her. And just be able to allow that to be a very special place. So for you in your world, I don't know. I'm sure that you have similar but different experiences with love, loss, and grief. And I want to say to you, if you are in a season of recent loss, be gentle with yourself, be gracious and have grace with yourself. Grief is on a continuum. Lean into it, accept it, be open to what the grief in processing the grief is teaching you about yourself. And you'll be shocked and amazed when you're really, really open and just don't be afraid to feel. You'll be amazed what downloads into your spirit from the person that you lost, because their lessons never stop teaching us. I think about my dad, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. And the things that he continues to teach me 3 years after his death are amazing. And that is my hope for other people who might be struggling and in a spot that's painful. So feel it. But if you get stuck in a stage that you can't get out of, reach out and get some help. Reach out and just get a boost of pushing through that so that you can get to that place where you can continue to feel it all, process it all, and not be lost in it. You don't want to lose yourself there. So I appreciate you listening to our experiences here on the farm. I appreciate you being in tune and giving me space to talk about loss and love and grief. And it's just hard. Um, as I have done so far, and what I will do for you now is to share, you know what I have to share, my favorite Boot Barn item. So today I call this my website sweater because I had to have this sweater when I went to Boot Barn. This was in Erie, PA, Boot Barn, and I found this sweater. And let me tell you, I'm a elbows design. Give me an elbow patch, give me an elbow design, something like that, and I absolutely love it. But then these little pieces of like the stitching. Oh, this one I don't know if I can get it around. Um, I just love that kind of stuff. I don't know why. It almost reminds me of the 70s. And, I'm a kid that grew up in the 70s. So I do love that kind of look. But this in particular, Boot Barn item, I wore it when we did our photo shoot for what I thought was just kind of some Bull Montreux Farms family stuff. And then later, our daughter, Nick, surprised us with building a website for us, Bull Montreux Six Farms. And I'm so glad that I had picked this sweater because it was the first Saturday of November. So it was kind of chilly. This was perfectly cozy, but it has that just a little touch of um, Western flair that's not too totally over the top. So, I love to have my Boot Barn stuff and talk about that. So this one is it. I do hope that you have something to balance in your life and, silly things. You have the serious things and the silly things. So for me, the serious, the introspective, figuring life out, and then the silly kind of, what are we wearing as we do that? That's just who I am. And I like to have the space to talk about it. But more so, I like to have the space to just connect and make a little impact. And my hope for you is that you're doing the same thing. And if you have little pieces of information that you like to share, little pieces of examples of things that you've gone through as well, please feel free to drop it in the comments. If you're listening on a podcast, you don't have that availability. If you're watching on YouTube, you do have that availability. I'd love to hear parts of your story and your journey as well. Any little bits that we can learn from each other are very powerful. So thank you for being with me today. I do look forward to being with you on the next one. Go do something great. Go do something awesome.